Hey everyone, One Big Boss here, and welcome back to another episode of New to Retro Reviews. And today, we are reviewing a classic from the N64 era, but it wasn't always, I feel, a classic. I mean, what is when a game starts out, right? But I feel that this game we're talking about was overshadowed by another very popular racing game, and that racing game was Mario Kart 64. And it's understandable. Mario Kart 64 was everything that it should have been, right? It had great gameplay, it had great graphics, its music, the character selection, everything about that game was just amazing. And everybody was always renting it on a Friday night, or if you owned the console, you probably had that game alongside Mario 64. So, yeah, I can understand why this very famous title overshadowed this little one right here. And to be honest, I know a lot of people are going to see this as controversy, but I think that this game is actually better than Mario Kart 64. I know. You guys can fight me in a Denny's parking lot on this after. Just hear me out with this, okay? Look, I'm not saying that Mario Kart 64 is bad in any way, shape, or form. In fact, it's amazing, and I'd still consider it probably a 10 out of 10 game, right? But this one does everything Mario Kart does and a little more. And I think that's kind of what we want from our games. But again, because of the popularity of Mario Kart, I think this game was overshadowed, which is a damn shame. But in recent years, things have changed. People have spoken up about this game, and that's kind of what inspired me to do this review here today. So, with that being said, let's get into it, guys. Here's my review of Diddy Kong Racing for the Nintendo 64. Let's get into it. Back in 1997, Diddy Kong Racing wasn't originally going to be the big release title for that year, but instead, another rare game. It wasn't ready to be put out to market just yet, though, and that game ended up becoming Banjo-Kazooie. So, instead of putting Banjo into a game that wasn't finished yet, they just decided to put him into Diddy Kong Racing, which had kind of been in early development. The funny thing about it, though, Diddy wasn't even a character at that point. Yeah, I did my research on this. Diddy kind of came a little bit late because they wanted to have a character that represented an IP that already existed. Now, they could have gone with Donkey Kong, right? But let's face it, in Donkey Kong Country, as popular as the big man is himself, he was only playable in one out of his 3 own games. So they chose Diddy because, let's face it, Donkey Kong Country 2 is the more popular one out of the original trilogy, I feel, and they chose Diddy to be the face of this game. And, well, yeah. It worked, right? I think it did. It was kind of a smart choice. He was very popular. And even before all this, the game itself was being developed around the time that Killer Instinct 2 was, but it wasn't even a racing game. It was a real-time strategy, RTS, and it was about cavemen and time travel. You might as well have called it Flint the Time Detective at that point, and if anybody knows what Flint the Time Detective is, you get a gold star, because not many people know that really old anime. But Diddy Kong Racing went through a few other changes, as most games do during its development, before we got to where it is today. Rare was a company back then that could do it all, and its library of games proved just that. So they went on to make this little title, and while greatly received upon its release, it didn't seem to be able to jump out of Mario's shadow. And yes, pun intended, send the booze. I deserve it. It's cheap, but hey, it's my review. I'm gonna make them. I'm gonna make these puns, baby. A lot of love went into making this game, and the team at Rare was chock full of talent. Talent such as Kevin Bayliss, who was the main man in charge of changing up Donkey Kong's looks, and he is the father of Diddy Kong himself. His other credits include a little game you might have heard of called Killer Instinct, as well as a slew of amazing games before this game and after. He's also the voice of Jago and Glacius in Killer Instinct, as well as the action and motion capture artist right there. That's pretty cool too. Make sure to follow him on Twitter because he's been sharing so many stories and sketches from the past and doing new stuff. He seems like a really chill dude. I wanted to get him on this review and have him record something for it, but unfortunately I just didn't have the time to contact him, so hopefully in future Rare games, maybe if I cover Killer Instinct, we can make that happen. But one of the other legendary people on the team was David Wise himself, and he is returning to do the music. And David Wise is one of the greatest composers in video game history. This guy creates pure gold, and if you've ever heard any of his music, most of you have probably heard it from the original Donkey Kong Country trilogy, you understand how great his music is in those games. So give a listen. But with these two juggernauts behind the wheel, this was a race that was destined to finish first. So this game actually has a story to it, and that's something that Mario Kart definitely didn't have. And to my knowledge, I don't really think there's a story mode to any Mario Kart game. Again, I didn't really play too many of them as the years went on, but pretty sure this was at least the first one to have this, because this is also a couple of years before Crash Team Racing came out, and that definitely did have a story mode to it. But with this game's story, it's pretty simple. It's nothing like RPG level amazing or anything, but it suits the game, I think. The story to the game is actually pretty interesting, if you ever read the guide or looked it up like I did, just to make sure I didn't screw this up. But Timber the Tiger's parents go away, leaving him in charge of the island, when all of a sudden the evil space wizard Wizpig, a wizard that's a pig, they combined the two there, yeah, that works, right? Well, he takes over the island and brainwashes the 4 main animals of each domain, and he also beats the island's best racer, Drumstick, and turns him into a frog, so that's interesting right there. Chicken turning into a frog, that's definitely a new one. So, Diddy receives a letter from Timber to come help him, and the little guy heads off on the adventure with friends of his own coming to help to rid the island of Wizpig and restore order. Apparently, he's taking over the island because that's his thing. He actually finds places, races everywhere, and then takes control of it. So, that's pretty cool. When I was younger, actually understood why he was doing what he was doing. I thought he was just doing generic villain stuff, but there was kind of an interesting thing for him to do that. Like, he just likes racing and conquering. And yeah, that's pretty much the story to the game, and not much else is really needed at that point. The gameplay is similar to Mario Kart in many ways. Race around the track and get to first place. Seems simple enough, right? But there's a little bit more depth and rounding to this game, more so than Mario Kart 64 had. First off, you can't just really go wherever you want on the island. You have to go to the nearest domain and beat each course to get a golden balloon. And these golden balloons kind of act like the superstars from Mario 64 that help open doors to Peach's castle, and in this, it opens new tracks and new domains at some point. Once you beat each track, you'll go on to face the boss of each domain, and these are pretty challenging upon the first time. And, well, once you win that race, you actually have to go back, drive through all the levels again, while collecting 8 N64 tokens. And yeah, these tokens and how they're labeled, they really want you to know that you're playing on the Nintendo 64. Oh, and did I mention actually after going through and doing all of these tracks all over again, you actually have to go back and face the boss of that domain, and they are way tougher than they were before. Honestly, I can't even really say which is the easier boss of the 4, because, to be honest, the first go-around, a lot of them are really tough, and it gets kind of nail-biting in many ways, and then upon facing the second time, it's even worse. I think maybe the hardest one, at least for me personally, was probably the dragon when I had to face him the first time and second time. It took me a few tries to take him down and such and get to first place, but maybe for some of you guys it was the octopus, maybe for you guys it was the walrus, maybe it was Tricky the Triceratops from the first level, but either way, you're going to have fun with these boss battles, and it's pretty ingenious to have you go back and fight them again, but have them, well, have their difficulty upped a lot, and to be honest, it just adds more fun to the game, and that's what we want in games like this, right? Mario Kart had coins in its game, and collecting enough coins gives you more speed. So, much like with the Donkey Kong Country series, bananas, a staple of those games, are what you need to max out your speed by collecting 10 bananas. And believe me, you're gonna need these for the races, especially in later races of the game, because the levels just become more challenging, and I really do feel sometimes these enemies get a little bit more aggressive. Couldn't find anything on that, but I kind of feel that they do. Also, you can lose these bananas by taking damage from weapons fired by enemy carts, so really keep an eye out for bananas on the track and collect them, because speed really is your best friend in this at times. Unless you're a character that has bad controlling, then you're just going to be all over the place like a drunk driver. There's also a weapon system, much like how Mario Kart had as well. By collecting certain balloons in the game, you'll be able to get weapons, shields, boosts, dropper items, and of course, special items. Collecting 3 of the same balloon power-ups, well, powers up each of the said balloons. Sometimes you'll be getting ones with missiles and boosts and oil slicks, and these are going to help you in a jam, but honestly, in my personal opinion, I really feel that the only 2 that you need are the red balloons and the blue balloons, because the blue ones give you really good speed if you get to the third one, And honestly, the second missile is a homing missile, which can be good, but the third one is where you can just let loose and fire off missiles at enemies all around. There's literally 10 shots that you have, and you're probably going to hit most of the people in front of you. So these weapons do make it kind of fun in this game, but I do want to talk about that a little bit more later in the review on why I don't like a lot of these items. Oh, and zippers exist. No, not like the ones you're probably thinking of, but these zippers are all over the tracks. It can help boost you past enemies, and some are placed in really weird locations, but there's a reason for that, because they can help you get across areas that, well, can give you a shortcut and get past other racers. But if you do miss these zips, well, you're going in the drink in some areas, or getting stuck against a wall and might have to just restart the level itself. These things are actually really helpful, and you can time them pretty well if you use a blue balloon to boost yourself to get near them. To be honest, it's one of the interesting things about this game that they have these, and it can be a great help to you in these races, and trust me, I think for some of them, you're definitely going to need them. There's also a trophy race in every domain you need to complete by scoring the most points possible, which, yeah, that seems a little bit like Mario Kart too, right? But there's also a reason for those points, and there's also a key in every world that helps you unlock a battle mode for you to complete and win as well. Once you collect all the Wizpig statues, and obviously the Wizpig amulets and the TT amulets, plus all the balloons from every domain that you race in, you'll unlock a brand new area and the true final boss of the game. And honestly, didn't see that coming as a kid, to be honest. Oh, and let's not forget the best features of this game, the vehicles. Now, obviously, you can drive a cart. No-brainer right there, right? There's also a hovercraft, and normally, I'm not one for water levels, but I feel the hovercraft in this does pretty well. Sure, yeah, you can get turned around pretty easily, but riding the waves and jumping off of whales and onto ships and going through coves, it's a lot of fun, and kind of the same thing when it comes to piloting the planes that you get in this too. The planes are a lot of fun, and I think now as an adult, the planes are probably my favorite way to play this game. But at the same time, when it comes to the hovercrafts, back as a kid, it just couldn't be beat. And there's nothing wrong with the actual kart racing mechanic of it, but you know, they added these new features, and that's kind of what drove a lot of us to, you know, pick this game up back in the day, I feel. And honestly, with how these races go, they're very intense, almost down to the wire sometimes, especially depending on which vehicle you choose. It's ultimately up to which one you like the most. I don't think there is a better, more fun one than any of these, but to be honest, it's all about your personal taste. But either way, you choose one of the three or you like all three, it is possible, because it's really that good at the end of the day. I really love the mechanics and how these things control. I feel they control pretty well. Again, you might have a little problem with the water levels with the hovercraft at first, but it doesn't take that long to kind of get the sense of how it controls, I feel. And again, that's something that the guys at Rare really put a lot of work into, and I'm happy about that. Now, I would love to go into detail about each character's stats like I did when I reviewed Sonic R a few months back, but with this game, there's, well, a lot to say about each character, and I feel that me explaining it would be longer than most of the races that are in the game. So all I'll say is characters like Drumstick and TT are the fastest and best in the game. TT is the hardest one to unlock, but once you do, you can't stop him. He, I think, even laps characters. Now, I've actually never unlocked the character himself, but I've heard that he is just unstoppable once you get him. But for the rest of the cast, it goes like this. Heavy characters like Crunch and Banjo have great speed, but poor turning and really bad acceleration. Middle characters are Diddy, Bumper, Conker, and Timber. All are considered the all-around characters of the game, which, you know, for Diddy, you'll probably be using him the most if you just want to kind of get that nice balance. And, well, when it comes to the light characters, the last two remaining ones are Tip Top and Pipsy, and they got the best turning and acceleration, but the worst speed. Yet, it's not always about the speed with some of these races. No lie, when it comes to the battle against Wizpig, at least the first one, I'm going to tell you guys this right now. Waste no time, get good with Pipsy before this match, because she is the one that you're going to need. If anybody's ever played this game and how difficult that battle can be, oh boy, trust me, she's going to be the one that you need the most with. But honestly, I always loved all these characters, and actually, when I had gotten my first turtle, I actually named him after Tip Top, because of my love for this game. And when I was a kid, Tip Top was the character that I used the most. So eventually, as time went on, I ended up loving Bumper. He was one of the ones I loved the most because he's just really like a cool looking character. But they're great, honestly. They all have personality to them, and they're great characters at the end of the day. So, like with most games, we gotta talk about what worked for this and, well, what didn't. So let's start off with the bad of this game. And honestly, the bad of this game? It's not too bad. Honestly, I don't really have that much against it. But a few gripes that I have is, well, the major one is the first battle with Wizpig. Now, this game, it can get challenging at times. I'm not gonna lie about that. But this challenge is brutally unfair. So, when you challenge Wizpig in this game, right, you don't get any bananas to help boost your speed, you don't get any weapons, and literally, from what I can tell, and what I looked up online for other people doing Let's Plays of this and such, there are no shortcuts. So believe me when I say, your best racer probably isn't going to be any helpful to you at all. I mean, I was using my best characters and fast characters, and it really wasn't about speed. It's about the acceleration. It's about the turning, because you've got weather issues here, man. The rain coming down, the roads, the way that everything kind of just drops on you, the way you drop off of the track in some areas, and how the water can affect you. And believe me, the water in this level does affect you. Pipsy was honestly the character I looked up online, and a lot of people were using her to beat this character. And yeah, I had to spend way more time on this race than any other race in the game. I pressed start and reset so many times. I think I actually clocked in at a little over 2 hours when recording footage for this, because it was just that difficult. There was no need for it to be this difficult either, because you don't have any items to help you stop Wizpig. You literally have to hit the boosts in certain areas, in certain directions, and at the right time, or else Wizpig just catches up to you. And to be honest, it's one of the major issues I have with this game. Also, the other issue that I have with this game is the later token challenges. Now, they're fun and amazing throughout most of the game, but the later levels, like the Ancient Forest, those levels become tough and brutal to get the coins. There's one where it's in like a village, and I think it's when you come out of the tunnel and you're back in the village area, and the coin is just way off to the right, and it's kind of hard to get it, because if you do and you're not doing the right speed, or you go too fast or too slow, you hit a wall, and then that's it. That's game over at that point. And to me, that's where it got a little bit ridiculous, because I was having to restart these races a lot. You just couldn't seem to catch up to any of the actual other racers. And that's not just because of a lack of skill, but I also think it's because of the lack of weapons. We'll talk about that in a bit. But again, the later token challenges, they're going to test your patience. For the earlier ones, not that much. They're pretty easy. They're pretty simple. And if you do make a few mistakes here or there, it's not even that bad, honestly. But again, I think also having the lack of powerful weapons in this game hurt your chances to, come on back into the race to get a chance to actually win. And speaking of those weapons, while they are fun, unlike Mario Kart, you don't get a lightning bolt or a superstar or 3 red shells or a ghost to help you in any way, shape, or form if you fall behind. And, well, even with 10 bananas clocking your top speed, you don't get anything. You just can't catch up at that point. Most of the time, honestly. Now, I heard people tell me over the years that this was done purposely to not give you a lot of fun, crazy items, but to more focus on your kart racing abilities and not rely on those items. And to be honest, I dig that. I actually think that is pretty fun. But it's also not a good balance here with this game, right? Because, yeah, we can memorize these areas all we want, but it feels like you get into one mistake and it's the end of the race for you. Mario Kart at least allows you a way to come back, and without stronger weapons, you can't do anything. I mean, there's really nothing you can do to get back in the race if you fall a little bit too far behind, even in the second lap sometimes. I don't know, maybe I'm not the world's greatest Diddy Kong Racing player, but this was something that I feel, even with Crash Bandicoot games, there was a lot of great items to help you throughout the entire game. I mean, you literally had the Aku Aku mask as the superstar of that game in many ways. This game doesn't really have that. You just get the balloons, and hopefully you get something that can help you get back into the race. The boosting balloons, sure, but again, it's just kind of a major gripe with that. And, well, honestly, at the end of the day, yeah, that's my only gripe with this game. I mean, I feel a lot of other things are great about it. Sure, the things I have mentioned do halt the game at times and don't make it as fun, sadly, but there's a lot of good to it. Okay, so here's why the game is better than Mario Kart 64, and please, put your guns away, let me speak my mind. It's my review, it's what I do. Mario Kart 64, at the end of the day, is a fun game. There's no denying that. That game, for what it is literally a 10 out of 10. But after a while, you realize, well, it's got nothing really else going on other than racing and battle modes. Again, for Mario Kart 64, it's fine. That was good. But Diddy Kong Racing does that, and it does it better in almost every way, shape, or form. The racing never feels old. Even having to go back and do races over for tokens, and then the special Adventure 2 mode where the tracks are flipped in a mirror-like way and all the coins are in new areas, that would drive people up the wall. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised it didn't drive me up the wall, because normally I think that would feel repetitive. But I feel it's the right kind of gameplay needed for this game. It's something you've done before, but now there's a twist to it, and it's just enough to make it different and not boring. I mean, there's just a lot to unlock in this game, and that's kind of the thing. Replay value and unlocking exists here, when in Mario Kart, yeah, you can unlock new tracks, but there's really nothing else after that, right? So I think that's where Diddy Kong Racing shines the most. The whole game from start to finish has so much charm to it. Whether you are dashing around the dino ruins, flying high in the volcano or windmill areas, or surfing the waters in the bay levels, you won't be bored, especially with Rare taking advantage of the 4-player option built into this game. There is so much fun for you and your friends to have in this, whether you're battling out against one another or you're racing against one another in all the levels that you have access to, which just make it such a fun and unique challenge, something that's just truly beautiful at the end of the day. The gameplay for this game is infectious, it's challenging, it's fair, for the most part. Aside from the gripes with the game I mentioned earlier, this game proves why it's the better kart racer, and I implore people to give this a shot if you have dismissed it in the past. It's definitely one of those games you just have to play, especially if you still get together with friends and you have that option to play 4 players. This game has it, and honestly, Rare just hit a home run with this, and I feel really bad it took people so many years later to realize how beautiful this game truly is. And with that being said, that wraps up this review of Diddy Kong Racing, a charming little game that shows why it is better than Mario Kart 64. Now, at the time of this video, sadly, this game does not exist on the Nintendo Switch Online for the N64 option, and I really feel that this is a missed opportunity. I really hope that Nintendo and Rare or Microsoft, whoever at this point, can get together and make this happen, because this game deserves more love. And the only way to really play it is by playing the N64 version. Or if you really want to play a different version of this game, you can play the DS version, which kind of had a lot of content and things taken out and things added in. I mean, I'll probably do a review on that game at some point, because I never really played that game a lot, so it'd be interesting. But this game is honestly a banger. This is almost a 10 out of 10, if not a 10 out of 10 at this point, for me personally. And I think a lot of people will agree that this game is very hyped. The team that worked on this really cared about the product that they were making, and you gotta love that. Rare was on fire back in the day in the 90s and early 2000s, and I don't know why Nintendo decided not to buy them when they had the chance, but I kind of wish they kept them, because Rare has always made really good games, really fun games, and I think the N64 era is kind of proof of that. So if you're ever at a flea market, or you're online and you're collecting old games, or you found an N64 somewhere, this is definitely one of the best N64 games to play with friends, especially with the 4-player option. It's just something you got to do, folks. Trust me on this. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with me on this, because as I've seen on Twitter and everywhere else on the internet for the last couple of years, people are kind of rediscovering their love for this game. And I love that. And I really want people to discover old games, because that's the whole point of my channel, is for people to look back in the past and see what made a lot of these games good, what made them bad, why people really enjoyed them back in the day. And again, an N64 having a 4-player option, no multi-tap like the Super Nintendo had, or you didn't need a multi-tap like the PS1 and PS2, it was a huge selling point. So yeah, if you get the chance, buy this game. You're not going to regret it. So with that being said, please thumbs up and subscribe, because it's free. In this day and age, free is a damn good thing. As always, everybody, thank you for watching. I'm One Big Boss, and I will see you all next time. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you could give this video a thumbs up and a share, helps the channel out big time. Give me a follow on Twitter and Discord, where I'm most active. Links down below in the description. Also, I stream on Twitch, so if you'd like to see me play a bunch of new to retro games, well, click down below, give it a follow, greatly appreciate it. Till next time, guys, be safe and have a good one.